Hello, so my name is Raelyn Ruffus. I teach 7th grade science at a charter school. And this is our environmental justice and data science. Again, this was done in a science class. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So sustainability project. By the way, this is just an image from my high schoolers. I came in one day and this was written on my board, and it just warms my heart. So I hope it warms your heart as well. All right, so what we did a sustainability challenge. We did this through Chipotle and Earth Force, and I'll go ahead and show you guys that in just a little bit. Basically, this was looking at food sustainability in our community. So students had to define what our community is on kind of a bigger level and a smaller level. So smaller level would be literally our school. What is our community? What is our strengths and weaknesses? What do we have on our campus? And a community, what does Pittsburgh as a whole, what does that community look like, and strengths and weaknesses of that community as well. All right, so day one, we did a project rollout. So first day, we did knows and need to know. Students got a calendar, a rubric, and a couple benchmarks because this is my first time doing it. So a lot of the documents that you guys see are ones that I modified because I'm for sure going to do this next year. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that right now. So day one, students got this document. We have a calendar. They see basically, give or take, what we're doing every single day for the next month. They also got some benchmarks. So these are big ticket items, big point items that were bolded on their calendar and just how many points they're worth. And then last but not least, they also get a rubric. So on the rubric, we have epic nerd, nerd, almost nerdy, and see me. That is my A, B, C, and then F. And for the F, that's just they would see what they were missing and kind of redo it. So they didn't really have a detailed rubric going into this project. Again, just because it was my first time doing the challenge and I was learning about it myself. So what is the challenge? Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So if you go onto their website, there is a section for students to do this workbook. And what I would do, retrospect, looking at it now, we had to cram this entire workbook into about 3 days just because I heard about the challenge a little bit late. So one of the things I would change in the future is I would do my data science lesson about 2 weeks before we even started filling this out, just to get students interested in the topic. So what's nice about this is you can treat this as your actual lesson. So at the end of each day, students could turn in a page of this. So this is the order of which you would do things. In a perfect world, we would have researched food systems. We didn't really have time for that because, like I said, we found out about this project a couple days before the entire thing was due. So I gave them ideas and they kind of picked from a menu. But in the future, we'll research food systems, research our community. Then what we would do is make our plan. And then if their plan gets approved, their whole plan gets funded, which was really, really cool. Next up, they run their plan and then we submit an action story for prize money. So what it kind of looked like, first thing we did, we defined our community and we figured out what metric we were doing and how that solves a problem. Students really struggled with this. So on a different day, we ended up doing this lesson right here. We did a project clarification. And this was really helpful for students because they were having a hard time figuring out, they knew how to solve it. They knew what they wanted to do. They wanted to make a vertical garden, but they didn't understand the issue that that vertical garden would be solving. And so what we did one day, what we should have done the first day, is made a long list of issues, all the issues that we see within our community around the topic of food sustainability, and then kind of made this T-chart right here and figured out what are some things we could do that would help solve that particular issue. So an example is there's a lot of trash and littering. Well, a way that we could solve that, help with the trash and littering issue, is composting and more trash separation. Teach people how to separate trash. So that's kind of what we did on day one. All right, so let's talk about the projects and kind of what went wrong with some of those. So the first project that got funded, we did a class project, which if you do this with your class, I highly recommend have some kind of class project because a lot of student projects are not going to get funded. And that's okay, as long as you have something for students to do. So we did a hydroponic project. It was so much fun. So a description of what it is, we grew plants indoors using water only. So one of the strengths and weaknesses that we found on our campus, one of the strengths is that we have a lot of support and our administration was okay with us having a garden inside the classroom. One of our weaknesses, we don't have space outside, and just living in Pittsburgh, this is a common problem for a lot of people being in a city. So we decided to grow our plants indoors using water only to help with the mess issue with bringing soil in the classroom. The things that students loved, testing their pH. They were such little pH nerds. They absolutely loved doing it both ways. We had a pH tester that they would stick in the water, and then they had the old school, grab a sample of water, put a couple of drops in, match the color. They absolutely loved both of them. Experimenting with different nutrients. So we had different nutrients that they could play with. They learned about what nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and just kind of what those do for plants. So they learned about the micronutrients and macronutrients for plants. And they got to play with which nutrients they wanted to put in their plants. We had a lot of fun doing that, measuring out the nutrients, playing out with different blends and that sort of thing, playing with the clay beads. They would constantly stick their hands in the clay beads and just play with them. They had so much fun with that. And then obviously watching their plants grow. So here's the teacher's notes. This is what I would do differently. First off, it was a mess. The breaks were the death of the plants. Literally spring break, we came back, all the plants were dead. I ended up getting COVID at one point. The plants died again. So in the future, nominate a gardener whose main job is to clean up and to keep the plants alive when you're out. The next project that got funded was an aquaponics project. So 2 students got funded with this. Another student talked his way into working with them. And so a description of what it is, a fish tank on the bottom with plants on top. And so students really get to learn about how photosynthesis and cellular respiration are just these systems, and it's a match made in heaven. What kids loved? The fish. And it's so funny. They were so into their fish that we unfortunately had for one day before the fish died. So students got to go to the pet store and buy fish. They made their own field trip. They had so much fun with that. They visited a hydroponic farm that also specialized in aquaponics, got to pick their brain, went to PetSmart. And the other thing that I really enjoyed watching with this group, they loved their research. They had this book that was fully tabbed out and they just carried it around with them from class to class. I'm surprised the book didn't get taken away. They were looking at it so much when they should have been doing things like math and quote lit and all that other stuff. Teacher notes, again, our fish died. Here's my recommendation. Our water hardness was too high. We had good pH, so everything else was good, but our water hardness was off. So get your fish tank set up ahead of time, and then go ahead and take a sample of your water with you to the pet store so they can test it right there and they can tell you if the fish are going to live or die once you put the fish in. Another project we did was vertical gardens and rain bins. This one was probably the most challenging just because of weather where we live. So the description was creating gardens that grow up and take up less space horizontally. And they also got a rain bin just to make it more sustainable. So what the kids loved, we still need to put this together sadly, but the kids loved gardening. I mean, so Lindsay is one of the girls who did it. She was so dang cute. She would walk around with her gardening gloves inside the classroom and just play with her soil. She was really excited for her berries, and they got a food dehydrator as well. So their big plan is to grow food and serve it during lunch. So they wanted healthier lunches was their focus. I'm going to backtrack a tiny bit. The aquaponic group, they wanted to grow food and sell it at the farmer's market. And our hydroponics group was just to grow food and just kind of sample it in the classroom. So kind of learn what different lettuces taste like and what different herbs taste like as well. And to hopefully bring that same love into their own homes. All right. So all in all, with the vertical gardens, what we decided doing is we're going to build those vertical gardens inside. Again, it's one of our strengths. We have an awesome administration who's all for that. Instead of taking it outside where the weather was just a little too unpredictable for us to set these up. So we'll get a grow light and we'll set our vertical gardens up inside the building. One thing that I would say is set up the seedlings ahead of time for places with harsh weather. So we were expecting to set this up outside. Disclaimer, I am from California and forget about these things. In California, we can grow outside in April, no problems whatsoever. Here was a completely different story. So my advice is set up your seedlings ahead of time inside the classroom so that when summertime rolls around, you can decide to either set those gardens up in the classroom or you can take them outside. Another thing that we did is we used toilet paper rolls for seedling separation, which just went along with the sustainability piece of it, and it's free. Our last project that got funded was worms and composting. So we literally have a worm bin and composting bin inside the classroom. What students love, watering the worms. We have these little spray bottles. Students love to go and water the worms. They play with the worms. The worms are having babies at this point. They're absolutely loving it. And then just learning what compost is. So we measure out how much worm food the worms need, and we put the exact amount of food that the worms need. So students have a lot of fun with weighing the compost and all of that good stuff. Teacher notes, make sure that the water is either left out so that some of the chlorine can evaporate or distilled. Otherwise, it'll kill the worms, and death, as we learned with our fish, is never a good thing in the classroom. Worm Return in Pittsburgh is an amazing resource. All right, so the lesson plan that I did for this particular project that was watched was a research day. Now, unfortunately, like I said, we've learned about this project a little too late. So what we ended up doing was our research day was after we had submitted our projects, we did a research day. And so what I did is a triple quote entry journal, which again, I will change in the future to an inquiry chart. But the triple quote entry journal is pretty simple. Students look at 3 different articles. They pick, I had those articles out. And I did a mix of websites and hard copies just to have students, challenge themselves to go beyond their comfort. If their comfort is websites, then picks a hard copy. If your comfort is hard copy, then also pick a website. So that had to be this hybrid piece inside of their triple quote entry journal. It took about 2 days. And what they did is they picked 3 quotes from that article. They talked about the significance of that quote and why they picked that quote. So basically putting into their own words and why they picked that particular quote. So one of the big takeaways that I love about doing a triple quote entry journal is they learn gist and they learn how to kind of quickly go through an article and see if it's worth really, really digging into. So this is kind of what it ended up looking like. So this is one example. So we've got the citation, and I did use MLA just because I'm in junior high and I know that in their English classes, they have to use MLA. So in high school, I would have used APA. Then they put down their quotes, write a summary and the significance, and they do that for 3 different quotes. So this was an example from the garbage collectors. And then off to the side, this is just kind of another piece that they had, which was getting in touch with people who are going to help them with their project. So this was a draft of an email that was sent out to our CEO and our principal. In a perfect world, we would have also sent letters to a lot of politicians, which I'll talk about later. This is another example. So this student kind of had it more laid out in how it was on the board. And both of these are from the green team. And this is another example of what it could look like. So something else that we were doing every single day that I wanted to showcase was nature journaling. And what students did is they put pictures, numbers, and words. And that's what they had to do every single day. So for the first 5 minutes of class, they would go check out their plants and do a quick entry. They can do whichever order they want. And now that I'm looking at the ones that I picked, I wish I would have gotten one whose comfort was pictures, because our artists in the class, it was really fun to see what they would write. They would have these amazing pictures, very little words, and very little numbers. If you could tell, both of these students, their comfort is words. So their entries were a lot more wordy. All right, so some reflection pieces is only do this project from start to finish because it was a lot. I was attempting to do this project and a cancer project, which was absolute mayhem. And I do not recommend that. Focus on this. It was a great experience. A lot of learning went on. But like I said, it was a lot. The other thing that I learned is to have more benchmarks for a better action story. Another thing was make sure to document the progress on social media. And why I say this is because students got to win money at the end of this. And I think had we documented our progress on social media, we probably would have won $1,000 instead of the $500, which was still amazing. All of the projects that were done in the classroom, they all won second place prize. But the first place prize was $1,000. And to do that in the future, I think I'll just do more on social media. Going along with that is to contact a political figure or political figures to get them involved in the project so that, again, it makes more headlines, it makes a bigger impact, which means students will win more money. Last but not least, get some media coverage and let the kids run with it. So one thing that I want to showcase, and I'll go ahead and showcase it right now. I had one student who made a book, literally made a book. And I need to pull it up. All right. So this particular student, he got into an injury, so he wasn't able to be in the classroom. And so what he did is he did all of this at home. He got involved at home. First thing he did is he did some research, which I was kind of taken back by this because this particular student is an artist. So I thought he would want to go with character development first, but he decided to do some research. And as you can see, this is some dang good sound research that he did. The next thing that he started to do was he started to brainstorm on what it could possibly look like. So I just love getting to the mind of this particular student and his brainstorm. So after he does research, he's starting to make connections, kind of formulating his storyline and even kind of doing some character development. Next up, he did his characters. He had his uncle come over, who is also an artist, and they started to kind of develop some of these characters. Next up, he got in contact with a specialist, worm return, and they're actually going to continue their partnership, and he's going to do some of their marketing products. Then he wrote a book, which I was super impressed with. We're actually at the moment trying to get into contact with some publishers because, as you can see, it turned out pretty amazing. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what some of the other students did. And I am super proud of them. So this right here is a video. And this is from our students who did the aquaponic project.
This is Alfie, D'Avery, and Jalen. It's Monday, March 28th, 2022, and this is an update on our 7th grade sustainability project.
In this past week, we've ended up getting the fish. We had tested the water to make sure the water was cool for the fish, and the water was too strong for the fish to live in. So what we did was we tried to lower it, and then we put the fish in, and the next day, our fish ended up dying, sadly. But we had a proper funeral for the fish. We put him in a coffin, and we buried him outside. His name was Cornelius Spencer James III. All of us were really, really sad about it because we didn't even have the fish for a full 24 hours. When we get more fish in the future, we're going to make sure that the water is 100% safe for them to live in. When they live in tap water, you need to filter it. The filter that we use is actually great, but what ended up happening was somebody plugged it out. So the water didn't filter full time. It wasn't enough. So we need to let the filter run even more and also use more products. Like there's water softener. You know, we have what we need to keep the fish safe now, but luckily we will be getting more fish. If I had to redo this all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. Say I wanted to go back and I wanted everything to be complete, it wouldn't be a learning experience. We learned from the fish dying. We learned from the water being too strong. Even though at first it was about winning the prize money, I am appreciative of this opportunity to do this project because not only did we learn a lot, it also gives us the education for the future. Even if I wanted to do a project on my own, this can help me be sustainable with any other project, not just for aquaponics, aeroponics, hydroponics, or gardening. This project gave me the confidence and the motivation to take on other projects in the future.
Go ahead and define our community.
In Pittsburgh, our community is where we don't have, in the city, we don't have a lot of green space. So we decided to make and create our own ecosystem to put inside of our classroom.
What were the struggles we had during this project?
I gotta restart?
Yes.
Why? All right, so for time's sake, I am actually not going to show the podcast, but they're linked right there. And there's kind of a mix of the Aqua Squad, which is the video that you just saw. There is a 7th grade green team. I got 2 clips there. One from our more advanced class and the other one from our least advanced class. One thing that I want to just point out is one person who was really impressed with this project was our dean. And she said she had never seen, there's, a group of students who don't care about school at all. And she's never seen them so engaged in the topic. So really engaging. Our garbage collectors did an amazing job, and garden girls. All right, so this is the class project that we did. So we need this deep enough, right, that when we flip this over, this is going to be touching the water. However, it's not going to be touching the bottom of it, right?
Wait, why don't My name is Stephanie, and I'm here at Max. Right now, I'm in front of the big science room. Look at this art. Mrs. Sharif drew that for me, so I'm going to be going in my classroom and showing you guys my classmates and all our projects and our lovable teacher that we really, really love so much.
What's her name?
Miss Ruffus.
Hey, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Stephanie Friend, and I am a 7th grader here at Max Academic Charter School.
And what city is Max in?
Pittsburgh, PA.
What are you growing, Stephanie?
Green mustard sprouts, cilantro sprouts, and dill sprouts.
Good afternoon. Can you introduce yourselves?
My name is Adia.
My name is Sean.
My name is Adia.
And what grade are you all in?
We are in 7th grade.
What school do you go to?
Manchester Academic Charter School.
And what community is your school in?
North South Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Sean, why are you growing food in the classroom?
So we can make our local food system more sustainable. We built deep water culture hydroponic system since we don't have a garden.
Hi, Adia. What did you do to build this deep water culture hydroponic system?
We filled it up with water and tested the pH. And then after we tested the pH, we added our clay beads, which is used as our growing medium. After adding the growing medium, we added our netting pods and our plug and our seeds.
Hi, Hajia. What are you growing?
We're growing chamomile sprouts, mint sprout, and lip balm sprouts.
Hey, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Clay coming from Manchester Academic Charter School in 7th grade. And I'm here.
Great. And what are y'all doing today?
We're diluting our water because it's too acidic and it has too much nutrients.
How did you find out it was too acidic? What is this you're using?
The tester.
And what observations? Did you look at anyone else's system? How did you know?
Everyone else who did the system like this is clear.
Ours is like brown,
Mhm.
brown mold at the top. And there's something at the bottom, and I don't know what that is.
All right. Great
You
job.
look in here, it's slimy.
It's just, I don't know what it is in there.
Ooh. All right. Great observations. All right, we got some. What are these?
Okay. Green mustard.
Mustard.
This is the green mustard.
And what's that?
Dill. And this is cilantro.
All right, y'all ready to do the tasting of what y'all grew?
Yeah.
All right.
Marion, back away from my plane, yo.
It tastes like leaves.
It doesn't taste
out
like
your mouth.
herbs in me. Oh wait, this was the mustard greens.
Yeah.
Yes, it should taste like lettuce.
Like the leaves, and I can.
Y'all gonna try some of the dill?
What is the dill supposed to say?
It should taste like a pickle, like a dill pickle. It's what they use to season a pickle.
Pickle.
Yeah. What is wrong with y'all? It tastes like a pickle. Can I taste it?
It does.
Oh my god.
All right, so that was our 7th grade green team. And so honestly, that last clip of all of those students who are testing out the food, that was on a day that we had a field trip and those students were not able to come. So it just shows how engaged students got, even the ones who are the most disengaged. All right, so if you needed to contact me about any further questions, as we like to call it in our classroom, any need to knows, you can email me, mrsrufus@gmail.com. I am also on Facebook, Raelyn Guzman Rufus, or LinkedIn. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed.